Hello, episode 6. I don't even know. Okay, now here's what I've thought. Just a little update before we get into this because I do feel like this and the next topic are going to be really great together. Um, so, this is just a pilot season. I'm hoping that after these 10 episodes happen, I can really reevaluate like the best way to figure out a podcast where I can hopefully learn to edit them and get this RSS feed going that I'm not quite sure on how to do. Anyways, I am going to talk about the 10 tips of how to start inclusion. This is going to be set into two parts. So this will be the first part, and then the second part. Oh no. Oh no. I'm not sure if my microphone has been working. Well, I'm just going to keep going. So, I'm dividing it into two parts. This will be tips 1 through 5. Yeah, okay, you get it. So, number one, how do we start inclusion at our school? And for anybody listening, anybody can do this. And it is one, determine the starting point. And you might just put in your head, like, yeah, I know where we are. We need to go forward. But, like, seriously, stop and write it down. I mean, do you know how many people talk about journaling every day? It is so important to actually put in like detail, put down in writing where you are at your school. Is your school totally segregated? Does that mean like all of your students with disabilities are like in those whatever those classrooms are called that are like not near everyone else? Oh my gosh. I lost it. The Oh my God, it's like so stuck in my head. Are they, like further away from the building? The portables? The portables. There we go. Are they in the portable classrooms away from everybody? Do they eat lunch totally in a separate place? Like where, or are your students like starting to get included? Are they starting to get invited to some of the, specials or the extracurricular activities? Or do you have students that might come into your room sometimes? Where are you in your process of inclusion? So that is really important. And what goes with that is knowing where everybody else's mindset is. So I talk a lot about perspective and ableism, and a lot of times people don't know that they have ableist thoughts. And it's not so much that they don't know they're having ableist thoughts, they don't realize that they're ableist. And this is like a worldwide problem, in my opinion. And if you're here, that means you probably are not ableist, and you probably work really hard on figuring out how to teach inclusive practices to people. And one of those ways is so knowing your baseline, and knowing your baseline means having conversations with people at your school on like where they are with inclusion. How do they feel about students with disabilities, especially significant disabilities? A lot of general ed teachers did not get training on how to work with students with significant disabilities. And in the first episode, I had the reflection question of who was your first, disabled person that you like observed or connected with or had in your life, and then like how did that get you to where you are today? What was your upbringing? How did your parents look at disabled people? So great time to reflect. I'm not going to personally reflect on these questions right now because we probably don't have time. Number 2 is fix the language. So you are already having conversations with people about ableism. Now is the time to also talk about the language. Do you want to say kids with disabilities, disabled students? Do you have autistic students? Do you have deaf students? Or do you have students who are blind or low vision? Do you have students with cerebral palsy? Like, how do you want that language to go at your school? And how are you going to communicate that to other people? I do not like confronting people, especially as a new teacher. That was like not up my alley. So, what I would do is I would repeat the sentence or story back to them with the appropriate language. So, I wouldn't even tell them that what they were saying was inaccurate. Maybe I would today, but I don't know. I still don't really like confrontation. Um, but it was really me saying, if they'd say, like, oh, that like Down syndrome student is just so cute or something, I would be like, oh yeah, my student is really cute, huh? Like I would repeat that sentence back to them in a more appropriate way. So language. I've talked about this before all the time. Like when you go home and you're like, behind closed doors, talking to your roommate, your family member, your partner, don't let that language just disappear. To actually make that change in your language, you have to use it all the time. And that is like the best way to have your mind shift into not the problematic behaviors that a student is having or how academically low someone is, but instead you're focusing on the communication that is happening, the support that needs to happen for the student to be successful. And that alone is just so important. So language, very important. I have so many resources to bring back to your school if you need it. So let me know if you need it. Number 3 is lead by example. Now, I talk a lot about this. I'm just going to say that for every topic, every number, whatever. So number 3, lead by example. Now, this is, I mean, seriously good for everything. When people are like, how do you raise such kind kids? Or wow, your kids are like so, oh my gosh. I mean, okay, so right now, personal example, people have commented on how extroverted my kids are and how they just like go and hug people. They're very, they sing really loud. They are very like loud, extroverted people. And whenever people say that to me, I'm like, well, I mean, that's kind of what they get. That's just like normal to them because they have a mom and a dad who every time we go out to grocery stores, we're like talking to people. They've seen me exchange numbers with strangers and like have play dates with people at parks. They've seen me dance and sing super loud in the morning in the car. They see it all the time. They, when I take time to like set boundaries with like people in our family or people outside of the house, when I bring up things that might be confrontational, they're there watching me. And it is so important to know that that is what everyone is doing. Even as a teacher, when you are a special ed teacher, a lot of times, I don't want to speak for everyone, but you might get dismissed sometimes because you're kind of this teacher for this special group of students that's like off to the side and not really included. You have to include yourself and just lead by example. And that means, talking to people, having conversations with people at your school, getting to know them, including yourself, asking people if they want to hang out. And I've had people tell me that they're like, I'm so introverted. I get so much anxiety when asking people, really basic questions. And yeah, I mean, that sucks. And I'm so sorry that that is what you experience. But if your students getting included is something that's really important to you, then we need to find healthy ways for you to be able to kind of step out of your comfort zone, genuinely meet people in your community with that mindset or goal that you're trying to include your students too. I wish that I had like some sort of secret of how to be extroverted, and that's really just like the conversation. People always want like a one fix thing, like how I had a friend who keeps saying like, is there like a magic pill where I can just like have unlimited energy, be a great parent, be well rested and all this? And no, of course not. But I also think it's a dangerous way of thinking that there's like this end point that we all just keep trying to work for this end point of like, well, once they're all being included in the general ed classroom, then I'll just calm down and I'll stop working so hard. Or like once I make 3 friends, then like I can settle down and we, whatever. That's never what it should look like. Leading by example is very, I mean, And now I'm not going to say I know a lot about Buddhism, other than like some classes on it and some books, but it's a way of life. So you want to be more social. You need to take those steps of like, okay, how do I be more social? And is that, maybe this week you just want to say hi to people. Um, maybe you just want to say hi to like one new person a day. If it's a student, if it's a worker at your school, someone in the community that comes by, and all it could be is hi and walk away. Um, and also, I mean, I think again, I think this is why visual journals got so big, or bullet journals, whatever they're called, because it gave people like the visual input that they needed to see their success. And and I don't think that always happens when people feel like leading by example. It's not like tomorrow I'm saying, go invite everyone to your classroom and go do this. It just means start taking those small steps to start creating those relationships, to start educating people in your community, to start getting your kids more involved in their community. Okay, so that was number 3. And oh no, 456 is all kind of this one acronym that I always talk about. I gotta stop saying always. Uh, so I'm gonna talk in detail about number 4 and 5, and I will tell you 6, but we will talk about it next week. So this is when I first started presenting by myself for Inclusion Starts Now. Of course, I had to create an acronym for our acronym filled profession. I had to think of a very fun acronym to, oh, I think my microphone died. I hope my computer is picking up all my audio. Well, we're just going to do it. We're halfway through now. So I created the acronym BEG. So when I want inclusion to happen at a school, I beg. And it stands for befriend the community, educate the community, and get involved in the community. So first, we're going to talk about befriending the community. And all of this could be put into like visual things, like so you can try to track how you're befriending people, because that might be hard. And there are things, I've created a sunshine binder that's like 50 plus pages of like how to create a inclusive community with the staff. And if you sign up for my virtual classes that I'm doing this year, everyone for January got visual like bullet journals for focusing for like New Year's Eve resolutions on all of these topics. Well, like the beg topics. So befriend the community. So say hi to everyone, introduce yourself. As I was saying before, that's just the start of it. Just start so people know who you are. Having lunch with your coworkers, so important to have that time that's, you're not working, you are having this time of chill, hanging out with people, just so important. So, and that's where like a lot of conversations happen, where people, talk about their opinions, people talk about their hobbies, people talk about like what struggles they're having. And when they're having struggles with a student, I would love to remind you that the special education teacher probably has some great advice for them. This is a time where I would say like, oh, do you need a token board? I can make you one. Do you need like adaptive scissors? We got those. Do you need like a break? How about you send your student over to my classroom, and I'd love it if they could come and read a story. Like so many different things that we can do. Learn something new about each other. This is a time in the Sunshine Binder. I have this activity that is very like no pressure activity. Everyone gets a little square because you're going to make it into a big paper quilt to hang on the wall, and everyone can write down their 3 like interests. And it could just, you can ask it however you want. I like to ask it of like, if I were to ask you right now to talk about something for 10 minutes, what would it be? And people come up with great answers of like, they can talk about trashy reality shows, they can talk about their dog, they can talk about dodgeball. Like, there are so many fun things out there that don't always normally come up in conversation. So, this is a great time for everyone to have their square, write their name, their hobbies, put it up. Awesome. Next, after school hangs. This was something I did with actually both of my schools that I worked at, and all three of my schools that I worked at when I was a para and teacher. I encouraged some outside of school hangs. And sometimes it was just like right after school, we go to a happy hour to get like half off appetizers because nobody goes to places at 3 p.m. So it was really nice to have this time that encouraged us to get off campus. And just like, again, socialize, talk to each other, talk about like not work things, and inviting others to your room, talked about that, and just like really celebrating the wins with everybody. I recently was talking to this group of kindergarten teachers, and they just kept saying how, like we were going over work and they went over each page and they were like, well, this is kind of a mess. Well, like they had so many negative things to say about the children's work. And at the end of it, I was like these students, some of them, this is like their first year of school, right? Like some of them are learning to read and write with you, right? And they were like, yeah. I mean, like half of them didn't go to preschool or anything. Half of them were just at home with their parents. And I was like, well, so these are great. Like this is really good work. And then they all kind of started saying like, oh yeah, I mean, this is really good work. I mean, this kid at the beginning wouldn't even hold a pencil, and now he's like, I just have to write it down first, and he copies it. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's a win. So don't forget to celebrate those wins. They're so important. And if we don't celebrate them, we're not enjoying this like process of learning how to get more and more inclusive. Because again, there's no end of inclusion. We could always be doing more. So celebrate every day, because that's like the whole point, you know? Okay. And then the fifth and last one I'm going to talk about today is educate the community. Now, this is such a great way to use all your knowledge for your community. As I said, a lot of general ed teachers never got training on disabilities. And this is also a time to be specific on the students in your classroom. So for example, when I was a teacher, for anybody who has a video, I'm so sorry you had to see that. Okay. My kids. Let's blame my kids. So I would do things based off of the students in my classroom. So I had a classroom that was all autistic children, and we did, and a lot of them used AAC devices to communicate, facial expressions, behaviors. Maybe they had like a handful of words, speaking words. And so it was a lot of time. There were a lot of behaviors to like express how they were feeling. And so we did ability awareness activities about not using our voices and how we can communicate with people without our voices. If you need examples of ability awareness activities, let me know. Oh my gosh, I have like a sneeze coming and I don't know how to edit. So you're just going to have to hear me sneeze if this happens. So ability awareness activities are a great way to teach kids about their students, their peers with disabilities. Next, school-wide celebration of differences. Now, this could just be like a generic celebration of like, yay, we're all different. Or you can focus on like how April is Autism Acceptance Month. You could do a thing about that. Some people told me that they were like, I don't want my child to get any more attention with like a day where we're celebrating kids with Down syndrome. And I was like, that's fine. You don't have to do that. Maybe you could just be like, it's World Down Syndrome Awareness Day. Everyone wear fun socks, like, or not. Don't do anything. It's your school and your culture. I can only speak from my own experiences and tell you what has worked. Next, educational conversations with coworkers, connect with your PTA. So important to get involved with them as they plan a lot of things for schools and, making sure everything's accessible for your students, and then, encouraging your students to go. And then last but not least, books. I love books. I'm sure you're not surprised that I'm telling you how much I love books. It is such a easy way to educate kids on differences about disabilities. There are so many great books out there on so many disabilities. There are so many great self-published authors who have disabilities or children with disabilities or used to teach people with disabilities who have created books and have just put them out there so we can all get those resources. So if you're looking for books on a certain type of disability or a certain type of lesson, let me know below, comment on things, and I can let you know. Or go to my Insta. I would say the best way to get a response from me is either Instagram, messaging me at Inclusion Starts Now, or email me at kayla@inclusionstartsnow.com, because I love sending you all the free resources that I can. Okay, that is it. That's part 1. I am going to now record part 2, and you will see it in a week. Inclusion starts with you, and I just want to help. Thank you, everyone, for being here and enjoying this pilot season with me. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.